Let me introduce to you Leigh Martinuzzi. Leigh is going to begin talking to us about being a very successful agent, but also having a balanced life. Leigh comes to us from the beautiful, sunny coast of Queensland. So he's brought the rain with him, actually. He's brought it here. So Leigh, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. Welcome. How are you all? Good. I like a bit more energy in the room. How are you all today? Good. We can do better than that. How are you today? Good. A little bit better. Gamma got incredible AI software happening here. And the beauty, I love collaboration as well. And Chris jumped on and shared some Gamma app. I jumped on there. I went and copied all Chris's stuff, made my own stuff, and I love it. The thing about all this AI stuff, it is about efficiency. And there's so much out there and you can get really distracted from it. And I think you'll find you'll get so distracted that you'll stop doing what's important. Not only in your personal life, but in your real estate business as well, and that's talking to people, right? So just remember that, and I think a really good point that I've had to make is blocking out some time. Maybe on a Friday afternoon, 2 hours, just came across this cool app, Gamma app, I'm going to have a play around with it and have some fun, because it is fun. The other thing that someone made a point of in the room too, and it's off topic, but, and I'm just a doer, so I just take something and I just do it. I'm not a perfectionist. That's part of my strength, it's also part of my weakness. You need to put in human intelligence, always. And I had to learn this the hard way, because I've posted shit on my social medias that's just been AI. So you really want to put in human intelligence, then use artificial intelligence, and then use human intelligence again at the end. Does that make sense? So you want to put in your own human touch to it and make sure you check before you publish it. So anyway, I love AI. I'm not talking about AI today. Who wants to hear more about AI and tech? No one? Good. Good, because I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about, so this is me. I'm from the Sunshine Coast. I'm a real estate agent. Started back in 2012. At the same time, I actually started a podcast in personal development. So two things that have been my passion for a long time. And that's really about real estate, which I'm very passionate about, but also about life. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And really I'm going to share my journey with you today, and hopefully some of the lessons from that as well to inspire you. One thing I really believe is that we can create a life with greater freedom, fulfillment and happiness. And it's always been so kind of the thing I've been looking for. I don't know why, but who else wants more freedom, fulfillment and happiness? Yeah? Everyone can relate. And I'm not talking about happiness, this superficial, surface level bullshit. I'm talking about deep, like really content. Regardless of the adversity, the challenge, the struggle that you might be facing, regardless of the wins and the successes you might be having, just being content with life. Because I think we only get one shot at this experience, so you want to make the damn most of it, right? Who would agree? Yep. Who wants to make the most of it? Let me hear it. Yeah? And that's really important to me, so that's why I want to talk about this today. The real estate agent, author, podcaster, mentor, passionate food, who loves food? I'm one of those weirdos that will eat like a big breakfast, and I'll say, okay, what are we going to have for dinner? I'm pretty excited. I'll sit around on my weekends in my spare time making sourdough bread and fermenting shit that I have in my fridge. That's what I love to do. I've got two young girls, almost 10 and the other one's 13, coming into the teens. Excellent. And I run a podcast. So for real estate and for life in general, I don't believe real estate agents struggle because they lack talent. I believe it because they lack one of these two things. You will see that. Work ethic and reason. Work ethic's something always that I've had. I've always been a worker. I think my dad was my hero and my role model, and he always seemed to be working, so I sort of copied him. From a very young age, I started selling shriveled up chip packets on key rings to kids at school, at primary school. I'd then make marble necklaces and sell them out in front of my dad's shop. Once upon a time, there was this arcade. Remember the old arcades? And down the back of the arcade, which was next to my dad's restaurant, they used to put all the free tokens in there. So I'd go and get all the free tokens, go into the arcade and get tokens to spend on the arcade machines. And they had the claw machine with watches. So I pulled all those watches out and then I went and sold them at the front of my dad's shop. Always loved working and making a dollar. So work ethic is your ability to show up and do what's required day in, day out, right? Who would think they've got a high level of work ethic? So you probably agree it's not something that we can teach you, right? It's something that you need to have. But I believe if you have good reason, your why, I call it your why, that's what fuels your energy, that's what gives you passion, that's what keeps you going, it builds resilience. And if you can find that, that will give you a high level of work ethic too that will push you forward. So I really believe that. So I come from a retail background. I worked in big box retailers, area manager for LV food stores for some time. And I'm sure you can all relate. I got to this point in retail where I was really unhappy. I was dissatisfied with life. Have you sort of experienced that in your life? Anyone? Just one, two? Cool. Everyone else is going well. I certainly have. I felt this deep dissatisfaction with life. And I remember I'd go home from work. It's not because I didn't want to go home. My wife at the time was pregnant with our first. And I wanted to obviously go home, but I was just so unhappy. So I'd stop at the Dan Murphy's on the way home, I'd grab a couple of beers, I'd go down the jetty and I'd sit there and just think and have my beers before I went home. Now it kind of sounds a bit selfish or weird to be doing that, but that was an important time for me to just be able to think about what this was all about. And as I thought about my life, I thought, well, this is not how I want to be, right? This is not making me happy, so I've got to do something different. And so I did. I made a big pivot from retail into real estate. I found real estate. I thought, okay, here we go. This is a model that can give you more freedom. I was sick of clocking on and clocking off for the man. Anyone had that feeling before? I hated it. And so, saw real estate, freedom, and then uncapped earnings. The harder I work, the more I can earn. I thought, that's bloody brilliant, because in retail, I could work harder than everyone else, but still earn the same thing. So I found real estate in 2012, got into it. I was pretty pumped, pretty excited about real estate. Who was excited when they first got into real estate? Some may be a bit nervous, some may be excited. I put on the suit and the tie. I got a compendium together, remember the compendium? So I put that together. And I looked around me at all the successful real estate agents and what they did and how they did it, and I just replicated that, and I hustled, I worked bloody hard. And I had success. I did $200,000 in GCI my first year, which I thought was pretty good. At the time, I was giving up half of that to the agency I worked for, which is pretty shit. But I was still making as much as I made in retail, so I was pretty happy at that time. So it was good success at the time. The things that I learned early on was that if you focus on those small daily activities, they will compound over time, right? Does anyone prospect here, get on the phones? Anyone else? A few people? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, who door knocks? Might be some door knockers too. Okay, maybe a bit of a mix of both. Those activities are essential. So I learned there was 4 activities that were really key to my success early on. And that was prospecting, that was marketing, that was follow-ups, and that was growth. I think you always have to learn. John McTavish in the room here, 42 years, still at a conference. And you've got to continue to learn, right? Because things change. So I think if you can set non-negotiable daily activities and stay disciplined to that routine, you will have success in the industry. And then you just work hard at it, right? And keep things simple. There's so many distractions around us. We've got social media, now we've got AI and tech, and that will take you away from those important things. So what I say first is do those things first in your daily schedule, and then focus on everything else after that. Does that make sense? And everyone's probably doing that, right? So who wakes up in the morning and has a routine of prospecting at, I don't know, start time, 8 o'clock, every morning? A couple of us, that's good. And that's what I think you've got to do. You've got to really work hard at it. That's work ethic. So for me, when I was waking up in the morning, I started the morning routine when I got into real estate because I started hearing all these 5 a.m. waker-uppers and thought, okay, maybe I should be doing that. So I'd wake up early in the morning and I'd do this morning routine and I'd feel energised and pumped. And then I'd go to work and I'd be in the office by 7:30 and religiously on the phones at 8 o'clock. And I would call non-stop. My goal was 2 appraisals, to book 2 appraisals every morning. I'd call until about 11 or 12 o'clock. And then between 12 and 3, I do marketing activities, and that also included flyer drops, popping things in letterboxes, doing handwritten cards to people that I've spoken to on the phone. And then if I had no appointments in the afternoon, I'd go back into the office and make more calls. Everything else will fit in around that, right? Who gets distracted by admin? Who loves admin? Anyone? I don't.
Kirsten.
Yeah. It is pretty easy, but it's one of those things you go, shit, I've got to do this listing. Oh, I'll forget about the prospecting this morning and I'll just focus on doing this admin stuff, right? Who's been there? And it'll take you off track. So those are the key things that I learned early on in my career. But I got to this point, again, I did 3 years in real estate down the Gold Coast, and every year I was doing about $200,000 GCI. It was great. I was feeling good about myself. And one day I was walking down the street delivering some flyers, and I just stopped, and again, this moment of where I was just thinking. And at that stage, I was starting my podcast as well, so I was listening to all these people about maybe how best we should live our life, and I started to think about my life again. And I remember I was just thinking, I'm going, what am I doing here? Putting shit in people's letterboxes. It didn't have much meaning to me, I'm honest, like, it didn't have much meaning to me. I thought, can I be doing this for the next 10 years? And the answer for me was no. Not long after that, I travelled to, I was with my family, we were down in Tasmania on a little holiday, which was nice. And that's what real estate can give you, right? More holidays. That was my goal, was to have more holidays. Back then it was 5 weeks. I'd like to have 8 weeks off a year now, maybe even more. And I am a workaholic, admittedly, but I still like to have breaks. But back then we were travelling, we just came back from Wineglass Bay down in Tasmania, did a bit of a hike there. We had a almost 3-year-old then and a baby, and we were driving in the car back, and I said to Anita, I said, hey, I'm sort of over it, hey, can we reckon we pack up and do something different, go overseas maybe, have some fun? And she was like, yeah, okay. I was like, sweet. And so not long after that, we had a house on the market, we had an investment in Brisbane, we sold that, we sold our cars, and we were in Japan, a 3-year-old, under 1-year-old at the time, she turned 1 in Japan, and a few suitcases. It was another big pivot. You know when things aren't going right in your life and you're not really satisfied? What most people do is they just look around externally for the answers to their happiness, yeah? And you'll never find the answers there. For me, it was about, I need to do something dramatic to have a shift. And so that's what I did. And everyone, all my friends go, man, you're brave, Leigh, that's courageous. And I said, well, I'm not happy and I only get one shot of this, so let's do it. We moved to Japan, and it was unbelievable. I taught English part-time, 30 hours a week or less. Fantastic opportunity. I had a house. We got some stuff from a second-hand store, and they gave us a car, company car as well. Lived in this little country town. Really, really good experience. And the best thing was I started to really focus on here and started to listen to what I wanted. And that was life-changing for me. I started really focusing on my podcast that year, about 2 or 3 years running. I started to write a book as well. I always wanted to write a book. And everything I was learning from the podcast was coming out through those books, so I did all that. And I remember this one moment. I had this little route that used to go down through the township along the creek and then back out, and there was this long road. It was really long. And it was like a spring sort of weather, crisp skies. And I was running up this narrow road. It's funny how cars pass each other in Japan because they're so tiny, the roads. Anyway, running up there, and I had this moment, this feeling of like peace and bliss. I was absolutely elated with life. And I realised then that you don't need all this stuff. We get told we need all this stuff and all this success and all that. If you really focus on here and start taking action from that place, you'll find a greater level of contentment. And everything else after that will take care of itself. And that's when I realised I had enough to be happy with what I've got. And I think that was the important lesson for me. Now, good things end, sometimes. I want to talk about this for a little bit. I left Japan after 2 years there and I came back and set up real estate. I'll get to that in a second. This is a model that I've sort of based my book on, The Ultimate Life Map, which I published when I was in Japan. And we're taught about do, have, be. Has anyone heard that? A couple of the audience. So, this is what society sort of teaches us how to live our life, right? You go out there and you do certain activities and that'll give you certain things, and then you'll be a certain way, right? So go to school, this is my sort of journey, go to school, go to university, get a job, progress in the job, start a family, buy a house, get a car, upgrade your house, progress further in your job, and you'll be ideally happy. Has anyone found that they've gone down that path and haven't found that sort of level of contentment? Of course, yeah. I'm kind of fortunate I found it a little bit earlier on, I suppose. The model needs to be flipped, and I really believe this, because it's given me a greater sense of contentment in my life, and that's to be, do, have. Does that make sense? So first and most importantly, and this is what I learned while I was in Japan, is that I've got to listen in here and start to live my life the way I want to live it. How do you, ask yourself this question now, and maybe write this down. If the goal was happiness, or freedom, fulfillment and happiness, how do you want that to look and feel? How do you really want that to look and feel? Go home and spend some time on this. Maybe put down your phone for a few minutes and just think about that question, because I think it's scary, but it'll bring up some answers that might be really profound to you. Once you know this, then you can start taking actions based on that. So you change your mindset, you change your actions, and you start doing what I call purposeful actions. You start taking actions aligned with your values and how you want to look and feel and what your goals are. Right? When you start walking in that direction, you have actually direction then, you'll start saying no to the things that will take you off track. And again, this isn't something that you can do tonight and go, I'm going to have freedom and success and $100,000 and all this sort of stuff and start doing that. This takes time. You've got to keep working on it. But the more you do, the more aligned your actions will be, and the better it will be at doing the right things for you. And that will give you a real sense of fulfillment and happiness. And I believe this too. I think you can have, when you start doing that, like I said in Japan, I didn't have much, but I had everything. And I was happy. And you can continue to grow up from there. And I think that's really important. Has anyone heard of Bonnie Ware? She wrote a book many years ago called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. This is really cool. I love this book because it made a lot of sense to me. I don't want to live my life and get to the end and go, I have regrets. Does anyone want regrets at the end of their life? Okay. I'm scared as shit of doing some things, a lot of things, but also I'm scared worse of living my life with regret. So I'm going to push myself to do the things that I want to do. I think that's really important. She wrote a book. She was a palliative care nurse. I hate saying that word because I always screw it up. But anyway, you get the gist. She worked with people, elderly people, dying people. And she interviewed a lot of them, and she wrote a book about it. The top regret of the dying was that they didn't live a life true to themselves, but a life everyone else expected of them. Has anyone ever felt like that? And maybe you don't even know it because you're not thinking about it, you're not aware of it. But if you think about that, are you living life on your terms? Are you living life towards your vision and where you want to be? Really, really important point. And I hope that can sink in. Do you know what the second regret of the dying was? Anyone want to take a guess? Yes?
I wish I'd worked less.
Yes. Wish I didn't work so hard. Wish I didn't work so hard. And I was thinking about this when I was actually writing. By the way, this is written in Gemma.app. Or this slideshow. Gemma.app, can you do my slideshow? I use ChatGPT with it as well. And then put that prompt into Gemma.app and say make a slideshow. This shit would have taken me years. It took me 5 minutes and I went, you'll see the ones that aren't made by Gemma.app that I've added. But anyway, offshore. Wish it didn't work so hard. I believe that when you're connected here, when you really know what you want, waking up every day and doing work that you love, that brings you joy, that takes you closer towards the goals you want to be at, it's not going to feel like work. Does anyone feel like they're going to work in real estate every day? Be honest. Yeah, absolutely. But wouldn't it be great if you could go into work in real estate and feel like you're not? And again, I'm a workaholic, so it's hard for me to say, like I just love working, right? But I love what I do. I genuinely love what I do. But there's been some hard lessons along the way. So a little bit Regrets, yes. Don't have regrets, please. I published my book, The Ultimate Life Map. You can get a copy on Amazon if you like. It's $26.95. Expensive, I wouldn't buy it. And this is what I came up with. Something I'm very, very happy about. And it's funny, I actually wrote my book and the be, do, have came through my work. But it's known, right? This isn't new information. I just interviewed a lot of people. I just launched episode 1120 of my podcast after doing it for a decade. I've interviewed a shit ton of people about all sorts of different things, particularly about life. And this was written 7 years ago now, so this is your life compass, and that's what I'm talking about being. This isn't something you can sit at home over the weekend with and never go back to, which is I've found the hard way. You've got to keep going there and put it on your wall. What's your vision look like of your future? What do you want that to look and feel like? And then put that on your wall, and every night before you go to bed, think about the vision of your future, because it will grow. And don't let go of it. Know your values. I've got 10 values written on my wall. Every morning when I'm doing my swim or a walk or whatever, I'll think about my values and how I want to be aligned with them. Because the more I can develop this and connect with that, the more purposeful my actions will be, and the closer I'll get to this point of happiness. And I believe, again, and this isn't the dopamine fixes from scrolling through TikTok, this is not having a drink with your buddies, this is deep, deep happiness with life. I believe you can get there if you focus on this and use that as your life compass. And this part of awareness I'm going to talk about a little bit, but you need to have good, solid awareness around your life. Does that all make sense, everyone? Okay. I can send you a copy of that, or Ken can, when he, after today. So a couple of little notes there, which I've sort of talked about already. I think it's really important to define what matters to you and live based on that and take action from that every day. Because again, life's too short. I think when you get older, you start to realise, what's really important in life. I'm 43 now. Someone asked me this morning, Rob, thank you. And I sort of had that discussion with him, and I think it's true. You do get to realise what's more important, but I think you can really learn what's more important now. And Rob was just telling me this morning, I tell all the young people not to worry about it. Don't worry about all that stuff. Because it generally won't matter when you're dead. Yeah? And that's the truth. It won't matter when you're not here. Create a why statement, and again I talked about that, go back to it as much as you can. Create a vision statement. There's a great book, write this down, called Vivid Vision. I can't think of the author. Great book, Vivid Vision. Listen to that, come up with your vision statement, think about where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Now you go, 10 years time, everything's going to change then. That's okay. But kind of think about where you want to be in that time, and just it'll evolve over time. Keep connecting with the daily. And mindfulness is key. Social media, technology, love it or hate it, I think it's really taken a lot of us away from connecting here, because we're so distracted by everything. So distracted by everything else, I'll just speed it up, let the time clock ticking. So make sure you give yourself time to think and have some self-awareness. I'm going to flick through these pretty quickly. I returned to Australia after being in Japan, and I dabbled with a few things. I didn't want to get back into real estate, because when I was in that first 3 years of real estate, I got this distaste, this bad taste, because there was this nastiness in the industry. Anyone felt that before? The company I work with now is great. There's a lot of collaboration, love and sharing, and I think that's really important. But back then it didn't feel like that. It felt like it was just this nasty competition, and even this stigma towards real estate agents. It still exists today. But that sort of put me off getting back into it. But I thought, you know what? I know what I want now. I know I'm good at real estate. I know what to do in real estate, so I'm going to give it a shot, but I'm going to do it my way this time. And I always say I was a real estate wanker when I first started. Put on the suit and the tie, went out there like a typical real estate wanker. When I got back, I ripped off the tie, sort of dressed how I wanted to dress, and I went out there and approached people how I want to approach people. People do business with people. And if you can show that in your authentic way, you're more likely to get people doing business with you. People want to know who you are, what your values are, what you do outside real estate, because they'll connect with that. So stop dressing up in a suit and tie. Hey, I'm Leigh Martinuzzi. I've done this too, by the way. I'm Leigh Martinuzzi, and this is my suburb update. Put some personality and some flair into it, and your own personality is essential. I came back to a place on the Sunshine Coast that I've never lived before, didn't have any more connections, and by doing it my own way, driven from here, I became the #1 agent in my area that year, which is fantastic, and I've held that for the last 6 years, which is huge. After a couple of years working with another agency, and I wish I had this earlier, I found a model called EXP Realty, and it was only by chance. I was pretty happy with the agency and all that sort of stuff. But then I found this model, I thought, oh, that makes total sense. I was already contracting, I was already my own sort of business. All I had to do was create a little brand and go out there and do that. And I doubled my income pretty much overnight by joining that company. And life was great. I'm going to skip this slide. There's a bit of growth stuff there. I could talk a year off about growth. I think it's really important. We'll come back to that if we get time. There's my podcast, by the way. Who's on podcast player? Spotify. Yeah, get your phone open. Subscribe, please. Good on you. So I was having a lot of success back in Palm and Sunshine Coast after a few years. And this is kind of a personal story, but I think it's important, and that's why I want to share it. That's my old man there. I was out one morning, Tuesday morning. Now by this time I had this morning routine that I developed. And I was pretty religious with it, but I missed it on Monday because I was feeling a bit down, and I missed it Tuesday. And I really believe you can't miss something more than once, right? You've got to get back on and start doing it again. So I was like, okay, and I went to this appraisal, it was about 11 o'clock, and I was driving back. I put my towel and my swimmers in the car just to motivate me to pull in and go for my swim. And my dad used to go swimming at the pool at the same, like in the midday. He was, I don't know, 74 at the time. And so he used to go on midday. I saw his car there, so I went in. And this was probably the hardest day of my life, right? I walked into the pool, I scanned in, Mark was there. And only moments before, Mark was actually talking to my father. And I walked in, and I was halfway to the change rooms, and I saw this man running towards me. And it was kind of, you probably experienced this if you've been through like a hardcore traumatic situation. It's kind of slow motion, but fast paced. And this man was running towards me, and I was like, oh, weird, isn't it? And then something clicked. I thought, okay, that seems a bit serious. I looked over, and on the side road, my dad was floating in the pool. I was like, shit. Immediately, I recognised well, not immediately, but I recognised I dropped my stuff and I ran over there. My dad was a big man, and I tried to pull him out, couldn't do it. By that stage, Mark was there and a couple of other people. We lifted him out. And I sat beside the pool that day. I was sort of kneeled down and his head was in my lap. I was trying to hold his mouth open. And we sat there for about 40 minutes trying to resuscitate him before the ambulance got there. But he had a stroke that day, and it was lights out for Dad. I was very hopeful that he was going to make it through. At one point I thought I felt his breath. I thought he bit my fingers when I had my hands in his mouth. But he was definitely gone. And that was a really hard moment for me. And I'm sure plenty of you have been through something like that. But I was the youngest of 4. And I've always felt like I've sort of supported my family as much as I can. And my dad would have done what I did. I just went and worked. I worked. Not to really drown it out, but I guess that was my way of dealing with it. And I worked bloody hard. And I supported everyone in my family as best I could, but I didn't have any balance. Wrong way. I actually got #1 international agent with EXP that year. You know, a traumatic year to get that. I was actually a bit baffled by that award, but I did. Because I worked hard. A year later, I, almost to the date, I ended my marriage with my wife. So that was a big moment, right? Where things happen. And I looked back and I thought, shit, I've had all this time, all these years of podcasting and learning and success, and yet here I am, and I broke. You probably didn't see it, like if anyone knows me, they probably wouldn't have noticed how broken I was, but I was down. I thought, what do I do? And that's when I did what I always did. I reached out for help, right? And I think this is a really important thing. Don't have to lose your dad to reach out for help. You can be struggling with your business. There's plenty of people out there that can support you and help you. You can be struggling in life. There's plenty of people who can help you. I struggled massively with balance. And so Brendan Bouchard is a high-performance coach that I look up to, so I joined his coaching program at great expense. Best investment I ever made. I've been working with Andrea, my coach, now for about 1.5 years. And it's been life-changing. And I said to her when I joined, I said, I want to learn balance. I need to figure out balance. Because what I was doing wasn't working. All right? And I'd probably be, well, I wouldn't be, maybe I'd be dead, I don't know, but I think it's important, right? So my lesson there is make sure you figure out balance. I did it the hard way. I can say now, you schedule time for prospecting, make sure you schedule time for you. My morning routine is that time, but now I'm scheduling time for holidays. Like I'm saying, oh, Emily goes, let's go to Barcelona. I say, okay, let's do that. So making more time for those things that matter, making more time for your kids, your family and all that stuff. It's as important as scheduling time for your work stuff. I think that's really important. In that ultimate life map, I have 3 things that I think are paramount that you need to focus on every day: health, relationships, and growth. I was always good at growth. I always loved learning and new experiences. My relationships, clearly I wasn't good at it because it ended. Health, I haven't always been great at either. But those 3 things I think you really need to dedicate time to and balance that. And then find a mentor, find coaches. There's plenty of free resources out there that can help you with life. With life, any real estate businesses. The one thing I learned in real estate is that everything you need to do in real estate is already there and being done by someone else. How you do it needs to be done in your own way. So I could have sat up here, told you everything I do. Some of it would have related, some of it won't. But everything already exists out there. So it's up to you to figure out what you want to do as it aligns to your values, and then how you go about doing that. And you'll have success. And enjoy it along the way. There's a little bit of a wrap of my talk today. Velocity, oh, there it is. Any questions? Probably not. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll ask you this one question. My coach asked me this the other week. He said, what would you do if you didn't do real estate? And what would you do if you didn't have to work? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Yeah? What would you do if you didn't do real estate? She sort of asked that and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel alive? Ask yourself that question. She put me on the spot and I was like, oh, I could do some gardening, I guess, and I get bored of that shit pretty quick. I like cooking, travel, all that stuff. And I realised what lit me up was actually helping people, teaching. I was a teacher for some time in Japan. I love working with people. I was a manager for a while, and that was kind of like teaching. That stuff really lights me up, right? So ask yourself that question, what makes you feel alive? If you can wake up every day with this goal to feel alive with what you're doing, you'll live a richer life. Part of that, I run every Friday a session for real estate agents if you're interested. We have some cool things going on at the moment. It's only started about 5 months ago. Had a online business marketing expert last week on the show, Chantel, she shared some gold. This week I've got this young dude, he's younger than me, a lot younger, 28 maybe. And he did 100 sales last year, and it's just him, his assistant, and a sales assistant. So he's on this week at 12 o'clock Friday. You can scan that QR code, please register. That's it from me, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Leigh Martinuzzi. Valuable. The way that he's sharing so authentically, it's just powerful. Just as we set up the next, sorry guys, everybody's QR coding. Just as we set up stools for the next thing, go ahead, stand up, stretch.